All right, let's get our first conversation this morning on the road. We take it to Edo State, where, of course, just last month, December, we saw the governor presenting the 2025 appropriation proposal to the House, that's the Edo State House of Assembly. Of course, all of the issues around capital expenditure, recurrent expenditure were also raised, concerns around how governments will drive implementation, fund the budget, as is always the case every other year, were also highlighted. But fast forward to, well, almost the end of last month, the budget had already been passed and the governor signed into law. So the rest is about implementation. Now, there have been concerns about what exactly is different from these budgets. I mean, when you compare it with the previous ones in the states. Edo State, the last few years, if you check the numbers, has done pretty impressively with internally generated revenue, not just relying altogether on allocation from Abuja, as they say. But to what extent has that really rubbed off on the life of the everyday Edo man in terms of the quality of life they live and how these budgets is being implemented in their overall interests? While we had former Governor Godwin Obaseki there for 8 years, there were those who said the loans that government took under his leadership were done arbitrarily. Others said those loans were not tied to specific projects that would impact in ways that are remarkably positive on the lives of the people. On the other hand, the governor, those who worked with him, and other Edo people who were not even in government or partisan in any way had said that, look, this governor had, I mean, talking about the former governor Obaseki now, brought revolutionary thinking into government. They said his thinking was institutional, futuristic, and very precise in terms of the way it's executed its projects and programs. Now, all of that is behind us because you have a new sheriff in town in the person of Senator Monday Okpebholo. And this is 2025 with the first month of the year gradually inching to an end. Ordinarily, the budgetary cycle has started, but how much of progress have we seen vis-a-vis the manner in which that budget was presented and the elements in terms of the numbers and allocations in the budgets? I'm joined this morning by, well, a supporter of the governor, a very staunch one for that matter, Haruna Braimoh, who is a socio-economic analyst. So help us look at all of this. Haruna, first of all, say good morning to you. Like we were joking a while ago, happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday, good morning.
Okay, but quite frankly, there are concerns around how that this is a new governor. This is, if you like, as they say in academia, his inaugural budget.
Okay.
Yes. Does he have the experience to drive budget at this level for someone who was also, so to speak, a neophyte in the Senate?
The question is, does he have the capacity to deliver on the budget? Not necessarily the experience, because the experience actually lies in the institutional framework of governments that drives budget implementation. You have ministries and MDAs. And remember, he's not a small fit politician if you want to talk of political leadership. He has the leadership experience, being in the Senate for more than 1 year, and now a governor. The former governor of Edo State never had any political experience. From being economic advisor to the then Governor Oshomole, he became a governor, and yet you just pour out some talks on him now, and he was able to drive and implement budgets. Talk less of a man who was representing a senatorial district, a man who was the chairman Senate Committee on public procurement in the whole Nigeria and the Senate. Now a governor of the state. He has a budget have been presented to them in the Senate. They have dissected budget as legislators. They have questioned the implementations of budget. They have questions allocation of budget in the Senate. Now is presenting budget. Now is overseeing the preparation, presentation, and implementation of budget. And he has good hands. We have the strong bureaucratic network in Edo State that drive implementation of this budget. His own is to now have hands that will oversee the translation of every 1 naira in that budget to realities for good governance and for the good of Edo people.
We can't, I mean, you are a finance expert, Haruna. We can't divorce revenue, regardless of how you generate it, from the manner in which budget is implemented, and how effective that implementation will be.
Of course.
We're not so sure what the numbers are saying now in terms of IGR in those states after the former governor Obaseki left office.
So
but let's talk about the constraints that are...
No, before we talk about the constraints, we should realize that budgets are prepared on projective parameters. There are parameters.
Not necessarily because you already have the money.
Of course, you set, there are parameters of budget preparation. There are benchmarks you set in expectation of revenue, and also in expectation of your expenditures. Let's actually dissect, if we want to dissect the 2025 budget as presented, a more than 600 billion budget. And for the first time in the history of Edo State, for the first time in the history of a state in the South, we have a state and a governor who is projecting 63% of the budget for CAPEX, capital expenditure. That means it means business. What is telling you indirectly is, if my expectation in revenue is right, my expectation in expenditure will be giving 63% priority to capital expenditure. Capital expenditure across sectors. Capital expenditures are in this education sector. We have capital expenditure in the agricultural sector. We have capital expenditure in the core road infrastructure. Across almost all the ministries, there are capital expenditures. You understand? And this is what the state actually needs to revamp the economy. That will now be generating more. The capital expenditure of the budget in education, for example, is already being implemented with some schools being remodeled. These are capital expenditures. Capital expenditure in road infrastructure has commenced immediately. You saw a lot of road infrastructure that is going on in Edo State. For everybody now knows that since Okpebholo came to power, Edo State has become a huge construction site. From rural roads, let's start from Uromi connected to Ibori Road. Let's not talk of the federal road that was in crisis for many years. He gave maximum and priority attention to the Benin-Auchi Road. Even the Obadan Junction, there are a lot of remedial activities has been going on there. We now come to the core Benin City. He flagged up the flyover connecting Oregbeni to decongest a perennial traffic congestion there. From Oregbeni.
That's around the Romal Park.
Exactly. Towards a Western Boys High School to connect to Oba Slope. That is revolutionary. And that project is at preliminary stage right now. Mapping is ongoing at that particular project. We now talk of the reconstruction of the Upper Mission extension by Aduawa. That was actually also a bad place for many years. That job is having a maximum attention with concrete work there going on. Should we measure the connection, the immediate construction of Temboga to Bolo bypass? That's another revolutionary project because that road, the last time that road was embarked upon should be during the time of Obemudia to connect Temboga to Ugbowo. And construction is going on there. The Ewa Road side, just name it. Are we going to talk of the upper Ekenwa Road? Because Ekenwa Road that Obaseki could not deliver in 8 years. He's not taking it to upper Ekenwa Road. It's going extra mile from where they abandoned it.
So maybe the barracks areas.
More than.
Okay.
I will not talk of the airport road, area. That's going further.
You see, you just talked about how there are parameters for...
So the parameters for preparing this budget are there already. Well, some of these parameters is, what are we expecting from FAC, federal allocation? What are we expecting from IGR?
What are we borrowing?
What are we borrowing, as the case may be, to fund budget? These are the basic 3 parameters. From allocation, from tax revenue, which is IGR, and from support grants, from borrowing and bonds. They all categorize into borrowing, selling of bonds, state bonds, to get finance to finance some critical projects. So absolutely, in the last 60 days of, or more than, a little more than 60 days of Okpebholo, we've been on the trajectory of progress.
Okay, let's talk about progress from a different standpoint altogether, Haruna. I was talking about revenue a while ago. There are people in Edo State today, I mean, those who are on the ground in the states, who say that one of the core reasons the former governor was able to drive revenue from point A to point B, whatever that means in terms of the numbers, is that it brought the kind of thinking into government that helps to galvanize revenue streams. He tried as much as possible to block loopholes or the leaks that you normally would have in a state like Edo in terms of how you collect revenue and things like that. Some people say, well, under Senator Monday Okpebholo, those initiatives may not be sustained, those measures may not continue to be.
How do you know? Have you, since he came to power, have you heard that every revenue process that is germane, that is built with sincerity? I've never been against whatever approach Obaseki. I've always been against the insincerity that is always embedded into institutional design for Edo State. Every of his thinking is embedded with insincerity, profligacy,
including all of those.
Of course, how can you? No, just of course. Which of the reform? Well, I've analyzed a lot of these reforms on this set. Let's talk of the IGR. Have you raised the state to a level as among the 9th state with the highest IGRO in the country? Yet there's no, the same IGRO cannot translate to good governance in the state. That is IGRO on papers. What are you using the money to do? You still pull up the state into debt of more than 600 billion in your 8 years. Hello? How do you collect, you say you want to finance a special education design called Edo Best. Bravo. That every school in Edo will have access to computer, everything, at least from primary to secondary. Digital resources and everything. Everybody clap for him. Even people from other states, even Lagos State, were coming to Edo State to come and learn the designs and the programs of Edo Best. What did it translate to? And you use that as a model to go collect $75 million from World Bank. And today, Edo State is left behind in education. In 2024 budget that Obaseki prepared, Edo was second to the last with the lowest budget allocation for education. Come and check what Okpebholo is budgeted for education. These are the things we should be comparing. It's not about what kind of institutional framework we design. You said e-governance, e-procurement process to eliminate, according to you, to block loopholes. E-procurement process that could award contracts that does not exist and money was appropriated. E-procurement process that appropriated 4.5 billion, that a modern truck park was constructed, purportedly constructed in Ariele. Is that institutional design that we should be applauding? Where there is no groundwork even going on and the money is appropriated. E-procurement process that awarded in their records that shows that a 1.5 billion health center, primary health care renovation was done in Uromi. And the health care facility is still moribund to date, but money was appropriated. But in the e-governance, if you go there, you will see it, money is appropriated. Is that the level? The entire e-governance system was being hosted, was outsourced to an ambassador in Lagos. Is that not a huge risk that the database in revenue generation of Edo State is being managed from Lagos, from outside? Government critical is like a remitter of federal government or TSA, Treasury Single Account of the federal government, is hosted outside the federal government. Maybe they are operating, they are driving the system from outside Nigeria. Is that not a risk to even security of our information as government? These are supposed to be classified designs. So it's not about the beauty of the designs. It's about how it was not able to translate. I'm mentioning roads and construction work that is ongoing right now in the Okpebholo administration. And all these are embedded in the budget. 63% CAPEX is going to be building 192 health centers across the 192 ward. Remember in his inaugural speech at the stadium, what did he say? Health was one of the 5 pillars of his administration. A healthy people drives productivity. A productive people drive productive economy. I told you on this program, we are mark, not your mark. That is why Okpebholo. Edo must build Edo. We are ready to work to build Edo to the next level where it actually belongs. Look at agriculture. let's check notes. In 2024 budget, Obaseki budgeted 7.3 billion for agriculture. Agriculture, and you expect the state, no, Edo is among the state that is net importer of food in Nigeria. One of the most inflated states with food inflation. Very costly when it comes to food inflation. Edo states among in Nigeria, highest in Nigeria, because we are not producing what we are consuming. What is Okpebholo doing? He said, okay, in this budget in 2025, I'm budgeting 73 billion for agriculture. Not to talk of the mechanized arrangement it's already having. Remember, the federal government is bringing, they are bringing about 3,000, 4,000 tractors. And Okpebholo is already designing his own to add to whatever the federal government is going to share, because that 3,000 tractors will be shared across 36 states. Is designing his own agricultural revolutionary program to add to it to drive mechanized farming. That is how Edo will build Edo. And when you are doing all this, remember the multiplier effect. The economy will be booming, and more revenue in taxes will be coming to the government. In one of his interviews on BBC before the election, during the electionary, remember what he promised about creating incentive that will drive rural economy. But most people did not understand what he was talking about. Right now, he's approving loans for all the market association and this thing in Edo State, interest free. Imagine the impact of that in rural economy. These are facilities that they've never had. The common market woman. Yet we have Edo State Small and Medium Enterprise Agency that the federal government gave 2 billion through Bank of Industry to support SME, and you could not point to one person that benefited.
Is it true? I mean, is there any truth in the reports that Okpebholo is more of someone now busy trying to reverse, or if you like, undo some of the initiatives and programs that Obaseki put in place, instead of strengthening those ones that have also served the state?
You don't contradict yourself, my brother. You said whatever is good, you straighten upon. We are following the philosophy of Kaizen. It's a Japanese word of management, progressive management. Kaizen means changes for continuous improvement.
Is that what Okpebholo is doing?
Of course, that is what he's doing. Changes for continuous improvement.
I'll put this in perspective real quick. Just a second. I've read people from the APC who seem to have a problem with Edo Best, for example. They have a problem with Edo Jobs, the other initiative that's created to generate jobs for young people across different sectors. So why are we not hearing more work happening on those fronts, for example?
Well, a lot is going on there. What happened to what is Edo Best is being reversed, because if Edo Best cannot build schools that will actually drive, because the school infrastructure matters in education. Are you going to be buying laptops and tablets for teachers or students without them having roofs to stay? You saw some of the schools that were shown from Ovia to Akoko Edo in Edo North. The same thing. Schools without roof.
But I have not had such schools since 1999. I mean, through successive governments.
That is what I always attended to. If you brought about Edo Best and it could not, and you collected 75 million, and these challenges still remain, you shouldn't blame the past. You are the immediate. You collected $75 million that you are going to do this. Part of Edo Best was school infrastructure. But Okpebholo is reversing it now. It's not just Edo Best remain as a program, but the institutional framework cannot work without school infrastructure. Infrastructure matters to drive education. You are driving Edo Best. Tinubu release how many this thing of materials, institutional material, structural material for students. You lock them up. You never distributed.
Have they been distributed now?
Of course, for more than 1 year. You lock them in the warehouse.
The APC seems to complain a lot about Obaseki.
Nobody complains a lot. You just brought about. We are doing cooperative analysis. I just told you, look at the gap. An investment banker with sense of economics, who is acclaimed intellectual, drove 8 years budget in Edo State that did not provide even 50% for capital expenditure. How do you drive the economy of a state where more than 50% of your revenue goes to recurrent expenditure? We are spending it on things that reoccur. How do you build infrastructure? And you claim to be bringing foreign investors. What attract investment is infrastructure. And you never invested in infrastructure because you never provided for it in the budget, or your provision was limited. So you were actually creating a noise, propaganda.
So how about when the former governor would, I mean, we're talking about Obaseki now, even though
of course
events have overtaken his government, because the APC would always want to circle back to those issues. But let's talk about things like, say, the Oshomo power plant, for example. What's the Okpebholo government doing about that?
Oshomo power plant is a private enterprise.
So what stake does Edo State government have?
That is what we are, because the first thing Okpebholo did across all, let me not limit it to Oshomo power plant. He created the asset verification committee, made up of erudite scholars,
APC members, APC chiefs in the states.
Are they erudite scholars?
They are information.
We are talking of competence, capacity, and capability.
So he may be a judge in his own cause. He's not
judging. Asset verification is to know what Edo State government stake are in some of these companies.
But you also know, Haruna, have an axe to grind with your
But don't have any axe to grind with. It's like you can't be a witch and be accusing somebody that you are being witch hunt. Except you are not a witch. If you are not a witch,
so that explains it.
Of course, because nobody is going to witch hunt you if you are not a witch. You don't celebrate witches, you hunt for them.
So that's what we're doing with this case.
We are not hunting for witches, but when we discover
there are witches.
Look, let me explain to you in audit.
Right.
They say if you are doing an audit, an independent examination of books of account of an organization or institution, if in the process you are there to make an objective statement that this account gives a true and fair view of the state of affairs of the organization you are auditing, express expectation as provided in the Companies and Allied Matter Act of 1999 as amended. But if in the process of trying to do that express approval, something you not discover, something arose your interest, you now go into what is called investigative audit. The law now empower you to probe to the bottom. The job of the Asset Verification Committee is to verify the assets of governments in bonds, in stakes, in equity, in assets, in facility, even liabilities. Let us ascertain. But if in the process of doing that, something arose their interests, they have the power to probe to the bottom.
Even if it means bringing criminal charges, for example.
Their own is to recommend to the government. The government now decides whether to bring up criminal charges or not.
You and I know that this has never really worked, even in Edo State, for example. Because when Oshomole came into office in 2008, he also set up this, where you had...
No, Oshomole never set up asset verification.
So what did you...
What panel of inquiries or whatever, which I don't even know of Oshomole, but I knew that the same Obaseki set up panel of inquiries on public waters, water board. Which is tomorrow, what about this morning, but the supply road. The project that he condemned and he later privatized and outsourced to the Earth project, the hospital, the ultramodern hospital built by Oshomole.
The former central hospital, of course,
exactly. The same hospital, he said he set up a commission of inquiry to investigate Oshomole financial activity. The same hospital upon which, as economic advisor, he approved or he recommended for approval of every payment that goes on across the project in Edo State during Oshomole administration. He set up commission of inquiry for investigation. While that one was going on, he was outsourcing, he outsourced the whole outfit to a private earth practitioner from Lagos. These are different things. Asset verification is not commission of inquiry. But if in the process of trying to verify the stake of Edo State in any institution in Edo State, something arose your interest, you probe to the bottom. It's legal.
Okay, let's circle back a little now, since we're talking about verification and inquiry. In 2009...
So Oshomo, I'm still going back to the Oshomo.
Of course, we'll come back there, but just by all means, in 2009, Oshomole also did the same. This conversation is not, Oshomole is not the centrality of this conversation, but he did set up an investigative panel at that time, made up of, like he would call them, erudite scholars. But these are people of stature, no doubt about it. It's people like Chief Hosseini Elama of the State Revenue Board, as then was the executive chairman. You had people like this other gentleman, Barrister Asemo Jizua, one time the state chairman of the APC. They were all there. And that's why I said two things. One, you jam these panels or this this kind of setup with people who have established partisanship. Then two, we have a history. There's an established trajectory of these panels never seen the light of the day. I don't want us to be distracted about that. Let's look at some of the things that the current governor, Senator Monday Okpebholo, met on the ground that he can continue to build on and then scale.
I just told you now, like the IGRO model can be strengthened.
Okay, and sustained.
Of course. That is an institutional design.
Right.
That is apolitical. Nobody can be political about when it comes to tax issues and tax laws, except he made a policy pronouncement that, okay, we are going to reduce create some incentive tax relief exemptions for some categories of businesses,
tax breaks and all that,
you know, in Edo States.
Right.
Anything outside that, the process of tax collection. But the real question is the burden of the tax. That is what Okpebholo is talking about. The burden of tax is always shifted to the final consumer, who pays directly or indirectly, who goes to the market to buy products. He buy at a price that has already been taxed, included, which he does not actually know. All he knows, or he or she knows, is the fact that I bought this thing at this cost. So Okpebholo is saying these people, which is the rural people, which is the informal economy, need more empowerment in the form of loans and facilities and grants to also empower them when their businesses or they are doing well, or in whatever ventures they are into. Their ability, their burden of paying tax will be reduced. The burden will be reduced indirectly too, because they will not be feeling it so much. You get my point? Imagine a typical market woman borrows money from a commercial bank. Let's assume even some of this microfinance bank, or collect money from Lapo, 1 million naira to start a business. And you know the rate of Lapo, the interest rate of Lapo.
I don't know.
All right, it's very. It should be more than, it should be around 15% or more. It might even be 20 or 20 something, because commercial banks are already 20 something when you aggregate all the invisible spiritual and physical charges they put. And that means in the capital you are borrowing, your principal is already less, about almost 20%. So how are you going to turn over 20% of 1 million? Is 200,000 naira. So when in the books, the money they are giving to you as an SME, as a businessman, is 1 million. But what actually touches your hand, net interest, because they even net it in advance, is 800,000. So you have the responsibility of turning over 800,000 to first of all generate the 1 million you borrow, and also generate the interest, and not talking of your profit. That's a huge burden. Before you not talk of the tax that is going to come from doing that business. So what the government is now doing, let us give you interest-free loan. If the government is giving you 1 million, you receive the 1 million instead of going to where you're going to receive. Is that not an empowerment in the economy?
All right, we'll talk about
that's a huge gain. So that at the end of the day, if the government is going around to tax your business, you will not feel the burden.
Okay, maybe we need to also at this point just shed a part of the burden on the program. We're taking a quick break, everyone. When we return, Haruna and I will talk a little more about where the state is heading right now, given the trajectory we're seeing the last 60 plus days under the leadership of Senator Monday Okpebholo as the executive governor of Edo State. Do stay with us, everyone. Right from the days of former Governor Okpebholo in Edo State, of course, who was in office between 1999 and 2007, it is almost impossible to recall at any point where one governor after the other did not complain about the borrowing spree, as they call it, of the previous governor. How will Governor Monday Okpebholo borrow differently? Because the question of whether or not you borrowed is as sure as today is Tuesday. But the question, I mean, the concern should be, in what ways will he borrow differently?
Okay, first of all, I told you here that if you look at the parameters of the budget, the sources of revenue in that budget was from FAC, IGRO, grants, borrowings. and bonds.
Of course, it's going to take loans. That's the point.
So at the federal level, we say ways and means. What are the ways and means to finance
the budget?
The deficit that will definitely be in the budget.
Right.
Because the total expected revenue, FAC and IGRO, does not equal in any way to the projection in the expenditure or what they want to do for Edo State. You understand my point? So that means that deficit will definitely be financed through borrowings, bonds, grants, and others. So how are we going to borrow differently? No government in the world that does not borrow, whether it's local government, state, and federal, or any country. But the question is, what do you actually use your borrowing to do? Not borrowing differently. The differently should be at what your borrowing is tied to. Every 1 naira that Governor Monday Okpebholo is going to be borrowing is already tied to a particular project as explained in the budget. In the budget breakdown, he has told you this is the deficit from the recurrent, the deficit from CAPEX, and this deficit will be funded through like this, through this, through this, through that. And remember, this borrowing comes from, like for example, when we talk of the $75 million of Edo Best. Edo Best was a program on its own that borrowed that on behalf of the government. And it was supposed to be tied. So the question why it become a burden on Edo people is not because we are paying it, it's the fact that it did not translate to what it was intended for. Instead, it translated into cash into people's pockets. Because if it translated to buildings, more schools were built, some schools were remodeled. Oshomo remodeled a lot of schools. He started the Red Roof Revolution across the 192 wards, across the 18 local government. You can imagine what $75 million could do with the current exchange rate in Edo State across educational infrastructure, instructional materials, resource, the teachers' training and development. Then when Okpebholo will come, it will not be doing that again. It will move to the next level, taking the education sector when it gets to that sector. But now we are feeling the burden because the money did not show any part of what it was used for. So it's not about how we will borrow differently. It's what we will do with borrowings differently.
Just a few days ago, Governor Monday Okpebholo was quoted as saying that President Bola Tinubu has his full support, or as they say, 100% of his support towards 2027 general election. Isn't that a distraction for somebody who just got into office and is still standing on one leg in the manner of speaking?
No, that is, if it was in another fora, we will be withdrawing that statement that is standing on one leg.
By myself or by my lawyer?
Yeah, maybe your lawyer will represent you. In the normal shell, you have an executive governor that is sworn to office since November 12th. So it's not standing on one leg. Until any other thing is the executive governor of Edo State.
When I mean standing on one leg, I'm saying that he's still learning. No, not driving. No, that's an assumption. I'm saying he's still learning the ropes.
Well, he's not learning the rope. It did not come. Has it shown to you that he's learning on the job? Is it not delivering clinically?
So he came with expertise.
He's delivering clinically because he's a seasoned administrator, a man that has managed MA to Power 3, or the 4 M's. He has managed men, he has managed material, he has run companies that operate machines, ICT, and he has managed money so prudently and efficiently well that there is no business he has entered or he has done in his life that is comatose today. Unlike those that were already financially bankrupt before they came into Oshomo revived them with government appointments. So let's not go there. He's not learning the rope of leadership. Do you know what it takes to be the chairman Senate Committee on Public Procurement? We have more than 400 MDAs and federal parastatals in Nigeria. Only federal government alone. And one man was overseeing the activities when it comes to oversight function of this agency as far as procurement is concerned. And you think that man will fail in procurement in Edo State? Edo State is just a microcosm of the larger 36 states and several local governments in Nigeria. He's not learning on the rope. And go by what he said concerning Tinubu, the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. We are in 2025. by next year, nobody, you will not be asking this same question.
They were not,
Those that are opposing, you expect as an APC governor, as a progressive APC governor, for him to keep quiet? Because those that are opposing Tinubu right now, the likes of governor of Bauchi State, that are attacking the governor, the president, and saying that they are not endorsing. These are PDP, the opposition party governors. When they talk against his 2027 ambition, it's hallelujah.
Or what's an ambition for 2027?
Of course, he has the option of saying, I'm going, I'm not going. But for now, the 8 years is the direction. So when a PDP governor attack the policy direction of an APC president and says that based on this, we are not voting for you 2027, we say this hallelujah. But when an APC governor supports that is doing well and is on the trajectory of driving Nigeria out of the woods, which we are already experiencing. When I was saying it many months ago here, that everything will begin to fall in place for President Tinubu.
Is that already happening?
Or is it not happening? It's not yet. It's not yet Uhuru, but we cannot shout Ureka now that we have gotten it right. But we are on the roadmap, and we are following the roadmap systematically, and we are focused on it. So when an APC governor now praises the president in that regard, we say it's an offense. That is double standing. I'm saying it with all sorts of responsibility on air right now. He has the right as a governor, even me that I'm here. I'm a progressive man. I support progressive governance. Sustainable development can only take years to translate. Yes, more than just 4 years. Sustainable progressive development. And the same thing is what Okpebholo is doing in Edo State. Every of his project is tied to sustainable development goal. His goal is sustainable, things that will be sustained beyond the periphery of the now, beyond paper, beyond talk. Look at all the paper talk. We want to build dry port in Okpebholo. You allocated lands to private companies. Land are supposed to be equity to the state government, to be stakeholders in such companies. Some of those you will release money to you release money and you involve in the government financing of those things, and you later the company now become wholly owned, no government stake in it again. And you said that is institutional framework. That is why we could not feel its impact. Okay, well, you can't sit here alone and say you couldn't feel its impact in a state that has millions of people. But when you talk of the impact of governance, those that are in the corridors of who benefited. I mean, even about the regular Edo people. Yeah, even everybody had the right to say, okay, he tried it, I have not said Obaseki was a total failure. But I can't score more than 30%. Okay. So while we appreciate that opinion of yours, let's wrap it up now, Haruna. Just the year following Obaseki's election into office for his second term, 2021 precisely, he had rolled out a 30-year development plan, 30-year economic development plan. That for many people is long term, at least for a state like Edo. Will Governor Okpebholo touch that plan with a 10,000-foot pole, or will he look at it and say there are some elements we can use here as a government in the overall interest of our people? You know, most of these politicians, they just maybe because we have a poor strengthening of social contracts in Nigeria, they take people for rights. Nobody's the development plan is part of the larger vision of governance, right, whether country-wise or state-wise, even local government-wise. You understand? But the question is, don't embark on policy somersault. Why creating a 30-year development plan when there was a development plan of Oshomole that you were part of as the economic advisor, as a governor? Obaseki then, he was the economic advisor to Oshomole. He was part of the team, plus the Answer and Godalo. They were part of the economic team that developed the development plans of Edo State across every sector, from economy to infrastructure to including the erosion challenges. The water storm project and everything, they were all part of the, okay, if we do this water at this stage, the water storm project will be like this. In the next, so the next government will take it, so that by today we will not be talking of erosion crisis in Edo State. But because of political, you don't want political whatever, you change it and you are starting again. That means the 8 years effort of the previous administration, you just throw it to the dustbin. You created your own template. Meanwhile, you were part of those that created the other one. Okpebholo is not talking, it's not against whatever development plan. The first thing as a governor is for him to look into whatever plan you had set in place. Okpebholo had what is, we are talking of Edo Economic Empowerment and Development Strategy. It's not a development plan per se. At the local government level, we'll be having local government economic empowerment and development strategies. The economy need to be empowered. And there are strategies that will be put in place to empower the economy so that it will translate to development. And all this will now marry together. If they are in tandem, whatever is in tandem with whatever development plans that is placed, will be worked on. We are not throwing out everything, but I'm just trying to tell you how they take us back. If you had managed the 8 years of Oshiomhole for 30 years, you will have 22 years. When you remove the 8 years of Obaseki for the same 30 years plan, now they talk so. If you remove his own 8 years from it, we would have been talking about
14 years.
Exactly. By now, that in the next 14 years, we should be here. But you cancel the entire development plan of Oshiomhole. You created another 30 years. And the funny part, you did all this with insincerity. Because if they had translated, you will talk of sustaining, because succession plan matters. A governor that wants a good succession plan will not embark on the political fight, acrimonies, and non-performance that eroded the 8 years of Obaseki. When I mean non-performance, less than 30%.
Okay, that was again by your own.
No, I just told you now. If a governor talk of development plan of a state and we are budgeting 7 billion in the budget for agriculture, compared to a governor that is now budgeting 73 billion, do the comparative analysis. At a point, Edo State was the second lowest in budget provision for education in the whole Nigeria, second to Zamfara State.
All right.
You talk of development plan, you ease of doing business. Edo State are more 36, FCT 37, federal capital militants. Out of the 37 states, Edo State was the last. Edo State was 38. We were even more. We were worse. Yet you created a book in your budget. You created what did you call it? Yes, a name you call it. That never had a ministry. You even created a commissioner for a digital economy. What did it translate to?
Was it a bad idea in itself?
No, the digital economy is good. I just told you now, most of his policy were by words. They never translated.